The long tunnel leading to this that Neferndel was basically put onto was as far as she had gone. She didn't have any information beyond that. Effectively, she was basically turned on to, you can follow this. It's going to lead you to whatever, but kind of just like a cryptically, this is effectively what she'll give you to. And that would be those stairs on the western side of this map that leads into a room that is predominantly like seems to be old stonework. A lot of old work showing that this is a part of the old city. At one point, it would have been the surface. You could see that there's kind of like a blocked off section in the south. You could see that there is this tower that's like two or so stories into the actual sort of cavern roof above. And you would see signs that though this place looks like it's an actual like room of construct, that it's actually still this idea that these are excavated portions of it. Those northeastern side before the tower and the north or southeastern side below the tower, those are signs where they've kind of excavated beside these or beyond these like clean walls of the room that you see on like the western side. And it's more so like that once you go through this tower and get to the eastern side. The tower has walls that block it off on the north and the south of it. So from the western side, you only saw this dome-like building that was kind of like a story or two tall. When you walked through the tower, you saw stairs, and they kind of vaguely lead up into sort of a darkness that was kind of clouded by like spider webs and things. It was kind of one of those things where there's sign of like the dust of the stonework in the excavation, and really just kind of this ages of dust and oh, what are the spider webs that make those like thick webs you like have all the time around Halloween? um I
Oh,
can't
well,
think of
like the
it.
trapdoor spiders? The ones that, like, make, like, the little path?
No, no. Oh, my bad. I shouldn't talk right into the mic. Not specifically like anything like that. Like it's definitely meant to draw some thought to spider webs in places like this should be dangerous. Not necessarily like giant spiders here. But I'm thinking about just the way houses over time, if they're left abandoned, there's spider webs like everywhere. And I feel like there's like a specific way to kind of discuss those spider webs where it maybe not even like one kind of spider, but it's just like years of spider webbing. But it's kind of enough that like for an adventurer, I think you guys have fought giant spiders. There's definitely the level of seeing spider webs and seeing very webby spaces are two completely different things, and this was a very webby space. It's not quite like saying this was a webbed tunnel that you guys could like walk into a web tunnel. So it's not guaranteed to be a giant spider up there. There's a solid chance that there's some sort of giant arachnid up there. There's definitely arachnid presence in that tower. But you guys basically just walked on through to the other door. You would find on that side, again, the rougher excavation. None of it is quite as clean and as simple as the western side of the tower. And on that side, you guys are basically met with kind of four different options. You've got north, where there's two statues on each side of this. I think these are 10-foot squares. So there's like two statues on each side of that pathway. Those are the circles with the stars. And then to the northeast, there's like, and that one's like almost a hallway. You can kind of see the beginning of that actually being smooth, sort of fashioned stone. To the northeast, you can see kind of roughly hewn stone, about a 15 or so foot wide hall. To the east, there was a building and a door. And then to the south, there's about a 20-foot passage that leads into, again, like kind of finished halls. I believe you guys started to move for the statues and were sort of ambushed from above to the sounds of breaking glass as these potions kind of smash down into the ground. Those insectoid like humanoids would leap down from above, and you had a quick moment of ganging up on them and dispatching them. I don't believe they offered too much threat. I don't believe anybody is terribly injured. You then had two rat folk come from the door. The pop pop of their guns. I think you guys killed one of them. And in my oh no, but it looks like I still have two. Maybe there were three of them because I do see one's dead. Uh, but you guys kind of had like that moment. And then I have saved in my notes that we're kind of still inside of the initiative. I'm not terribly concerned with us starting back up into the initiative here simply because it's been so long. I don't think you guys are under terrible threat, but that's kind of what I have as like a recap to get us back to this moment. Does anybody have anything to add?
Nothing else is coming to mind. It's been a while, so I'm probably forgetting something, but that sounds. I have Davros has some temporary hit points. Did somebody cast aid? Or
I I have in my notes that Terry rallying cry 11 temporary hit points or 10 hit dice on sidekicks. I feel like 10 hit dice on sidekicks is too much, so I'm not sure why I wrote it like that. But I do have that I believe Terry Chin has used his ability that's a rallying cry.
okay, that would explain it. Yep. So okay, so I'm down to 8 temps. So I must have just gotten taken a glancing blow at some point. Okay.
But I believe everybody should have some form of temporary hit points right now.
Yeah, that's right. Terry got everybody amped up right before we started.
So yeah, like if we pick up with this combat, I have initiative order has you guys at Davros. One of the rat lords, I just have rat lords, so maybe I was doing both of them at the same time. Jinx, Gale, Neferndel. Do you guys want to jump right into combat and some dice rolls just to feel out your abilities? Otherwise, I'm not gonna lie, like the rat lords to me are only really threats as the insectoid humanoid things are like in your faces and they're shooting at you from a distance. I believe you guys can basically move through this and dispatch them. I think we called it specifically because like Chris had we almost always have like kind of a hard cut just because of how late it gets. And I think maybe Justin was getting some food delivered last ages ago.
Yeah, I think it. I think I had something, or I was going to dinner or something. I think yeah. So we kind of had to do the harder stuff.
Yeah, it was,
I'm good to just if we want to kind of hand wave past the remainder of the combat and pick up somewhere else. But if the others want to, you know, uh, do the combat, I'm good with that too. So I'm good either way, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm
what's
fine either way. What was it? They ran down the hallway in between the stars and like ran away. Is that what happened?
no. Are you inside Owlbear now?
Yeah, yeah. I don't see the actual rat stuff.
Oh, wait a second. You know what? I was definitely Owlbear just crashed. I just noticed that I was mistaking one of the lizard folk. Who is it? Who do we have? Is that Bob?
Oh,
No.
that's Bill, I think.
My bad. I did mistake Bill for one of the lizard man. So Bill is kind of southwest of you. Gale has kind of flanked south of the lizard man. So that's what it is. There are two lizard men. One is left alive. You guys killed one at the door. Immediately to the west of him, you don't see a little lizard guy, like white background, or not lizard, rat guy.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the two, like, just east of Gale, like one dead and one alive.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I see the one dead one, and then the guy next to him, that's, Ratman?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah, I totally see that now.
yeah. So that makes more sense. That's because I was thinking Nephrindel was my NPC in this because you guys have two, four, six. Yeah, yeah. Because I think what is it? Jinx has Terry, Davros has Seamus, and then Gale has Bill, and then I was using that for. So these guys came out behind you guys, and it was moments after the actual insectoids kind of leapt from the top of this building. It's kind of a two-story building, and they would have leapt down and kind of attacked as they were like smashing those potions. I think one of them was a sticky potion. I think another one was like sort of an electrical shock. I feel like you guys all just smashed like the deck saves and just basically ignored both of those potions when they did hit, sadly. But the two rat folk kind of came out of that door and like pop pop. Um, and yeah, so you guys can kind of dispatch that second one, and we'll just pick up from it from there. Like at the end of this combat, you've just kind of slain these four things. If you're thinking about recovering some ammunition or just getting more of the guns, I believe they were coming out with pistols.
Yeah, so I'll finish reloading. I think I was halfway through my reload on the long rifle, and then I'll go over and, like, gather up some ammunition if I could.
Gotcha. Yeah. So they've got like six or eight shots on each of them. If you roll like a d6, you can have a d6 plus six shot. I believe I think you guys all were using a light source at this point. I think Gale has light, Jinx has light, and then I wanted to say Davros had a lantern. So you guys have pretty good scope of lighting this room as you move around it.
Anybody else need some ammo?
I'm fine, thank you.
Alright then, don't mind if I do. So, yeah, I'll put 11 shots in my inventory then.
I know. I know my son Dalton fooled around with those things, but I like to. I'll trust what I can hold in my hands. Got javelins if I need to.
Gail, as you move into that area, you can see a little bit below you. Like some of the kind of excavation has like wood planks and a little bit of like disheveled stone. Roll an intelligence for me here, Gail. If you have any like stonework reasons, you could use like a I don't know, like an intelligence based skill. Otherwise, just do a straight intelligence kind of thing.
And that would be a 10.
Yeah, I think that's enough to recognize like it just doesn't kind of fit like with all the stone for there to be sort of like wood planks and whatnot kind of in the dust and like almost like gravel kind of across this ground. But if you go over there and like investigate a little bit, you can see that there's basically like a lightly covered just hole that seems to just kind of fall off into the ground. And I'm correct that you have light, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you can see, like looking down, the distance that your light travels doesn't quite penetrate to the end of this shaft. So I think light is a 15-foot spell. The dim light goes about 30 feet or so, and you can basically see that there's a continuing shaft down into the ground, well below this.
Yeah, I think I'll just take out um
There's stones and gravel there if you're looking for something to drop.
yeah, I was seeing if I had like something in my inventory that I could drop. But yeah, I'll pick up a stone
Cast
and
light
just
on it.
yep, and drop it in. See if I see the bottom.
Gotcha. Roll another. Do a nature test for me, or what's your nature bonus compared to your arcana? I don't want to say arcana because I feel like that's like a plus 20 at this point.
It's a plus 11 on Arcana and a plus 5 on Nature because it's just like my intelligence modifier.
All right, let's go between them. Let me go for like a plus 8. Just roll a d20 here. Gotcha. Yep. So as you kind of drop it down, you basically are gonna drop this lighted rock, and there's never a thud. You watch it fall, you see where it stops, and there's still kind of like light coming from where the stone hits, but there's no sound. It seems to have fallen into something that has like deadened any sort of like impact. And then you can see like there's a little bit of like kind of the shimmer of water and like the flow of water, but you didn't hear a splash. And then the light just seems to, as if the stone like just kind of washed away with the flow of water. It just seems to be kind of like out of view, and the light kind of dissipates and it's dark again.
I'm just gonna recast light on my. I think I was some quarter staff.
Sounds good.
So Davros is going to kind of like come up towards Gale, um, looking at the ground around this pit. Does it look like the ground is like weakened near it, or does it look like a purposefully dug pit or opening?
Um, I think looking around it, you can kind of recognize the like I would say from a blacksmith's perspective. Let me have you roll a d20. You're probably like stonework or recognition of things is probably pretty high, so let me just see where your d20 is before what I think it would be like an intelligence, masonry, stonework, but I feel like, yeah, okay. So by the time you're kind of looking at it, you can see like this stone has been worked and tooled. Like you can see the marks of tooling. Pretty easy to recognize. Like with him describing, he can see the flow of water down below. He can see like the signs of light shimmering through water. This is a well. The top part of it is tooled as if somebody made it on purpose. But you can basically see, like, as he holds his quarterstaffers, as you drape like a lantern down there, not all of this shaft is made by tooled effort. It's not all artifacts of somebody working here. The shaft itself is natural. It's almost accidental that somebody found it, but they turned it into a well.
Okay, gotcha. Well, nobody fall down there. Seems to go down quite a ways. Probably make sure there aren't any more of those rat things lurking back there and they'll jump out at us. And they'll kind of gesture off towards the this door here.
Where I just revealed like where the rats had come from.
Yeah, yeah. And I gotta say, I make this same mistake all the time with Bill. I always like first I just glance at it and I'm like, oh, rat thing. It's like, nope, that's Bill.
Yeah, so you guys can go through this room. This building has largely kind of destroyed walls. Most of it is not really intact here. Again, it's going to show all of those signs of the filth that the rats kind of bring with them. But in the long run, kind of going through here, there's not really much to find of interest. Um, let me have let me just have each of you roll a uh what, like perception or investigation. And let me just get an average from the three of you.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think Davros is mainly just wanted to make sure there weren't any more enemies in here, so we'll just kind of take a quick look around. So it'll be a 3 for him, perception.
Yeah, so Davros definitely is not looking for any artifacts. He is certainly looking for hiding places and ambush points. You are going to find both this level as well as the roof above is all devoid of enemies. Those foes who were here had basically already leapt out at you. What was your total from Jinx, and what was the total from Gale?
13 from Jinx on perception.
Oh, I forgot to roll actually. Yeah, nat one.
Gotcha. So realistically, we'll go for like instead of doing it specifically as a team, Jinx, you're kind of noticing they do have like more javelins and things like up on the rooftop, but by and large, this place is just kind of trash. The building is a little bit too call a place of ambush left from the old structures, but basically that's realistically all this is. If you guys have any interest in any more javelins, as far as I'm concerned, you guys could walk away with, like a dozen or 2 dozen. It doesn't really matter at this point, but if you guys want some javelins, they definitely would have some more pretty mundane throwing objects upstairs.
I've got, assuming Jinx kind of points that out, Davros will demur. I got plenty. He's got half a dozen. He doesn't want to lug around any more than that.
Don't gotta tell me twice. I mean, I much prefer to carry these, and I'll just like pull out a handful of the ammunition.
And remember that also includes like the powder horn, basically, because those are black powder weapons.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I just sort of figure I like have like one horn, and I just kind of like dump the black powder in it as we go.
We check some of these other. Are these passageways leading up north, and is that one to the south?
Yeah, yeah. Right now, you guys have three other directions that this place goes that you have not been. North between the statues where you were heading when you got ambushed. Northeast into the rough, kind of 15-foot wide hall, and then south in that 20-foot hall.
Yeah, and just remind me what the statues look like. What kind of statues are they? Or just, I mean, it doesn't matter then. Just
Reminder wise, I'm tempted to say they are lacking all discernible characteristics. Honestly,
oh,
I kept like looking for the statues and I'm like, I swear they were described. I don't remember where, but I almost think it's just like, hey, they're like destroyed statues.
okay. No, actually, I just looked back in my notes and I have in my notes two statues, effectively humanoid in shape, human-sized robed figures, but otherwise not particularly distinctive. So I put yeah.
I was totally thinking that it wasn't like wrong to say that. But yeah, I'm glad you found that because it's definitely one of the things where like this room's described in like so many different weird places. It's kind of hard to find some of the descriptions at times.
Davros will look to the others and kind of nod off towards the passageway leading off between the statues, and we head up that way.
I mean, I was thinking the same thing. I'd say be careful of traps, but we sort of just got ambushed, so maybe that was already it? I don't know.
I have a feeling it won't be the last one, so maybe keep our eyes out, peeled out, and try to see if we catch them before they catch us.
Yeah, a place like this probably pays to always keep your head on a swivel.
So by the time you're investigating the statues closer, you would be able to basically make out that this is like a hall that continues on for like just over 30 feet or so before it turns left. And before it turns left, there is indeed a doorway there. So that's like kind of something you can pick up from the statues before really walking down the hall. And then again, part of the statues being kind of like without characteristics is also to recognize like this place was like caved in and has been freshly excavated, and that's part of what you notice about like the rougher walls here is wherever the real walls are, this area right now at present just isn't back to them.
Gotcha. Uh, yeah, so Davros will start walking down the hallway. He does have his I guess bullseye lantern in his offhand for his light source.
Gotcha. I think the bullseye is 60 feet, so you can get 120 feet of dim light.
It's a 60-foot cone, and then yeah, 60
Yeah.
feet of dim. But basically, Davros is intending to. He's going to walk kind of. He sees the door, but he's going to kind of walk towards the end of the hallway to kind of look around the corner before.
Yeah, so when you kind of like, are you gonna flash the light down that corner? Are you trying to look
Ye
without the light?
No, Davros doesn't have any sort of. Yeah, he'll use the light to yeah check around the corner.
So I don't think it's a big deal for me to reveal into that door at the end. I don't believe there's any reason to say that that door is shut. But basically, what I would say is you look down a long hall, and well into the distance, you see a door at the end of it. And again, I think it's perfectly fine to basically reveal the next little bit into that room. But you also see that there's a door about 30, 40 feet down that hallway as well on the north side, on the right side of the room. Roll a perception check for me, Davros.
Sure. That is 5.
Excellent.
So he'll look back towards the others, kind of come back a few feet, and always seems to continue. Don't see anything. I think we check this door here first, and he'll gesture to the one to his beside him.
Yeah, I might as well. Don't want to go further into the hallway and just to find out we get ambushed from behind.
Do you want Davros alone to push open the door? Do you want somebody to be beside him? Do you guys have thoughts about how you're gonna approach this, like as far as the group situation is? Do you want to keep it like how we have the tokens, or do you guys just want to describe it and kind of ignore the tokens for a moment?
Davros will he'll kind of like nod to the others, and he will go to push open the door or push through. Actually, he'll probably before he does that, he's going to lay or put the lantern on the ground so he has both hands free, kind of like on the right in the side, so that its light will kind of keep you know at least penetrate somewhat into the door, and then he will go to open the door.
Gotcha. So you've got the bullseye facing the doorway. Dalton kind of looks to everybody to nod that he's about to open it. Effectively, do we have Gale and Jinx kind of right there waiting? Again, those squares are 10-foot squares, so you guys can have kind of 4 people in that square. But what are you guys thinking? What satisfies as Davros is about to shoulder the door open? Right? That's what you kind of described, like bursting it open.
Uh, I mean, I guess he'll try to like if it's like just regular like to open it, he'll do it, but he'll do it I guess fairly quickly and kind of stride through. Or if it looks like
Gotcha.
it might be stuck, he'll use his shoulder to try to
Gotcha. So, assuming it's open, if you had to, you would put some body into it, but you're not simply throwing a shoulder into it. Does that sound good for Jinx and Gale?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll kinda stay towards the back, watch our back, make sure nothing comes up behind us, and then I'll have, Terry move up there, like, with Davros, ready to, like, rush in or whatever he does. Terry will kinda do the same.
Gotcha. Sounds good for you, Gale?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Davros and Terry push in. Gale's got an eye through the doorway. So yeah, as you go to like just kind of push on the door, it doesn't take any effort to open. The door is just going to open. You just kind of like step on in. Terry kind of immediately follows you, and then it leaves Gale with like a well lit kind of like bullseye of the lantern. Um, the door's not gonna like completely like it's not gonna completely light this room simply because of like how the bullseye is directed, and Gale's a little bit back from the door. But you can see, and Terry can see very clearly, that this is a small, like 20 by 20 room. There's, 20 feet in front of you and some things, and there's like a dwarf just kind of like standing there staring at you. The rest of the room has kind of like some furniture, like scantily thrown across it. There's a lock box, like a strong box in the southern corner that you can kind of make out. Terry, again, with the dark vision and like the actual dim light in there, can see it a little bit more clearly. And you can see like a disheveled bed in the southeastern corner from Terry's point of view. That's probably pretty much out of the view of Davros and effectively Gale can basically only see into the room and this dwarf who's just like staring at them, like kind of like not necessarily cowering in the corner, but there's definitely a dwarf who's kind of like just staring at this door and seems sort of like surprised to see that there's folk entering.
Yeah, so Davros will be probably squinting a bit as he moves in before he, and he sees the dwarf, and he will kind of instinctively, kind of his hand will move to his blade, but when he does, when he doesn't see the dwarf immediately doing anything antagonistic, he'll kind of um, give like a little nod of his head in the dwarf's direction and greetings, kind of.
I feel like we've probably discussed this prior. You guys know Neferndel is like moving forward as like a cultist, as the Brotherhood. You guys have plenty of the broken rings of the Brotherhood of Venom. Is Davros wearing one of the broken rings?
I feel like Dalton was the one who kind of had his alter ego. So I think unless somebody essentially kind of told him he should, he probably is not. And in all the hubbub with everything else going on, it's probably not something he would have thought of himself.
Does that sound good to Gale and Jinx? Neither of you think you would have informed him with everything going on? Just kind of an oversight?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted a ring, Davros, I never wear mine, so you could have mine if you wanted it, but otherwise, I wouldn't really probably think twice about it.
Hello and greetings. Who are you?
Name's Davros. Who are you?
Let me have Davros make a Arcana check, and Gale, can you make an Arcana check at disadvantage?
Yeah,
Actually, you know what, Gale? Let me have you make a Perception first. Oh, that was rough, anyways. Um, I don't think it's going to matter really between those two different roles.
and that's a 3 for me for Arcana.
What is your Arcana, Gale, with either the first die rolled there or just the 6?
I mean, the 8 is 19 and the 6 is 17.
Yeah, 17 doesn't matter. Yeah. So as Davros is kind of like going to question him, Gale immediately picks up that this dwarf, as he reaches out to kind of introduce himself, the dwarf kind of flicks his fingers a little bit. Uh Davros, can you make a wisdom saving throw? um as he kind of like gestures with his fingers, Gale, you can recognize whether you necessarily know the spell or not. Excellent, you resist this spell. You don't really notice what happens. Gale, it might be enough that you kind of recognize, like, I wonder what Davros is going to do next. But realistically, what you do kind of pick up on this is the dwarf was casting a divinatory spell to try to figure out what he might be able to learn about Davros in this instant of reaching out his hand, this little flick of his fingers, and he just says, I am Warren. I'm the keeper here. I'm the one who's meant to watch over the tower and greet you when you arrive in the temple. I'm sorry, I was just taking my rest. I didn't know I was supposed to expect you. My bad, I confused myself. You already said Davros, right? If he responds, I didn't know I was supposed to expect you, Davros.
Yeah, Davros did give his name. Yeah.
All right, yeah. So he just kind of finishes with that, like, I didn't know I was supposed to expect you, Davros.
Didn't didn't know you were down here. And he'll kind of he'll shake the dwarf's hand. Obviously, he doesn't know what's going on with the any kind of nefarious attempts. He's still kind of a little suspicious, and he'll kind of move in to allow obviously the others to enter the room as well. If you're watching over the tower, suppose you knew about those rat things. They part of your group, or just unwanted vermin?
Uh, our our group has rat folk working for us. Uh, we have been using them as guards. Does that mean you injured them? Do we need more? They didn't. I'll make sure that they're replaced promptly. And there's no worries. No need to worry others. We can have them replaced immediately. Nobody will be nobody will be worried about a few deaths, and it's perfectly fine.
All right. Uh, Apologies if my questions seem um, I'm new to this, and he'll kind of like trail off because Davros is not he's not the most
Everybody's struggling with the intricacies of working together. There's a lot of interests in play. It's perfectly fine. Um, Nothing to apologize for.
so Davros will give another nod and then kind of turn and look towards the others with a kind of expression of like yeah, I don't probably not the one to be taking the lead in this conversation.
Gale or Jinx, do you guys have anything to say to this dwarf? Are you guys looking to move on and beyond him?
I'm like pretty far back here, so I would imagine I'd like kind of overhear what's going on, but really wouldn't have too much to interject as I tend to like blow up our conversations when we're pretending to be cultists.
Anything from you, Gale? You guys have any thoughts about how to treat with this dwarf?
I think Gale at least would may just introduce himself like but giving his fake name that he's been giving everywhere else. Like, yeah, sorry about this mess here. I win, and yeah, I mean, replacing the Ratman would probably be a good idea. They gotta. Are we sure about those being guards? They seem a bit trigger happy.
Is Gale wearing a broken ring?
Oh yeah, he would have like fished it out and like put it on one of his fingers.
Do you flash it at the dwarf as you're like putting it on, or like after you've put it on? Are you flashing it at him?
I would probably like put it on like before I greet him, and then just like as I greet him, like, make sure that he sees it.
Gotcha. So until you're kind of like blatantly kind of like displaying it, you can kind of see this dwarf is not terribly perceptive. He definitely doesn't pick up on the fact that you're like putting on the ring during this conversation and then wearing it. You just kind of notice a point where you almost like stick it right between his eyes kind of situation. Like is essentially you're damn near like smacking him across the face with the fact that you are wearing this ring that identifies you as a cultist. And like during this is like during a little bit longer of a conversation. You guys don't have to go through like all of the conversation, but you can sort of notice that it's not something the dwarf is picking up on until you just make it blatantly obvious that this ring is there on your finger. And it's only at that point he's just like kind of has like an almost like eureka moment that you can see in his eyes where he like lips just kind of to himself a brotherhood of venom, like that he's like saying like, oh, I finally know where these guys are from. It's the brotherhood of venom. um and then sometime later in that conversation, he's still kind of going on, and you bring up like the trigger happy nature of these rat folk, and he's just like almost as a throwaway line, like they attacked you after you've identified yourselves, and you know, they shot it. Maybe I don't want to. I don't want to be the cause of fighting between everyone. I like to think that I'm an intermediary that keeps everyone a little bit less chaotic amongst ourselves. But perhaps they told them to attack the Brotherhood. Perhaps they just didn't see the ring. I don't know if it is still infighting. I hope it's not infighting. But it could be that.
It was a sort of swirling melee, a lot kind of going on at once. Those weird like creature experiment things we've been creating like kind of dropped down, and uh I think the Rat Man just sort of jumped in on the action.
It takes a little bit more to keep them. The one who injects them has more control over them than simple intelligence. They're not very good at recognizing different identifiers. Some have rings, other have markings and things. Everyone identifies themselves differently, and the thralls don't always recognize it as well. So, I can't apologize for the thralls. They're still experimental, but the rats, unless something's been changing, shouldn't have attacked you, but you have to be a little bit more forward with displaying who you are. Make sure um, before that. And he just kind of like makes the big explosion, as you can kind of see. Like he's definitely been shot at by the rats, and he's not unscarred from the fact that they can be trigger happy.
So while kind of the conversation is going on, and once the dwarf mentions like some different, like somewhere the rings, and Davros kind of almost belatedly realizes he's not wearing one and kind of almost tries to like um, move his hand like out of sight, but he's also kind of trying not to be obvious about it, but trying to kind of like uh, taking a little bit of a closer look at the dwarf to see like is he wearing a ring or like any emblems or anything that might indicate if he belongs to a particular cult.
Let me have just one d20 roll, and it'll be kind of your own like sleight of hand to like hide your hand just as much as it's your test to see and look him over, kind of like intuition. Yeah, 11's good enough to kind of recognize like Warren isn't specifically like one of the chaos cults. Warren is definitely a little bit more kind of generically like for chaos, but doesn't necessarily owe allegiance to a chaos cult. You would have heard some of what he says, kind of along the lines of he often is using the names of like we, kind of like trying to talk about like the cults as like a unified thing. He's often trying to say and discuss himself as like kind of like intermediary on that level, and you can kind of see that he's not specifically somebody who's like marked one side or another. And that might give you some of the clue of why the rats might be shooting at him more often. But part of what you can kind of gather is also like this guy is like he's like insane levels of jumpy. He is alone in this place, in this duty of what he does. Like he doesn't have company. It's he himself and me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I. You know what I mean? Like he is alone, surrounded by like the occasional rats and these thralls.
Gotcha. Bit of a lonely job. Well, didn't mean to barge in. Suppose we should leave you to your work.
He like twitches a little bit as you like kind of like mention like your work.
Yeah, hey, so this is our first time down here, and so we don't get into any other unnecessary skirmishes or weaken help or whatever, cause any like intermediary fighting. I don't suppose you give us a heads up. Anybody else around here ready to jump out, or like people we should worry about or keep an eye out for, just so we don't cause any unnecessary problems.
Persuasion.
It's super high, 28.
The rat folk keep a nest just beyond the beyond this hall to the and he kind of like describes off to like the northeast, as if that other tunnel basically would have led towards the rat folk. Some of the more, and he says maybe this is kind of one of the first moments of like a little hint of disgust and sort of like racism in how he kind of describes it. Like the little bit more of the cultured ones stay to the north of here, but no, the demons in the temple are just beyond this way. But they won't bother you?
Yeah, all right. Appreciate that. We could get a little bit trigger happy ourselves. So, I don't blame the rat folk for what happened down there. Matter of fact, I think I may have shot first. So,
Wait, did you just say you may have shot first?
yeah, I can't remember if they actually shot at us or if I shot at them first.
He just kind of like still like hesitant to like scold you or to like tell you any like better way to go about your life, but he just kind of has this moment where he just like hesitantly is just like uh, maybe don't kill the helping, just identify yourselves and just be a little slower at killing those who are working for us.
That's good advice right there. I'll take that to heart and I'll pass it on to the others. Appreciate you.
Kind of perks up a little bit, like the word appreciation is maybe not necessarily in his lexicon.
Well, should we keep it moving? I mean, they're expecting us. We should probably not keep them waiting too long then, yeah?
Yeah, Davros will give another nod to the dwarf and then move to step out of the room back into the hallway.
When you sort of like come up to the front, Jinx will reach out his hand and say, "You're going to be, representing us from the front. Might be a good idea to have one of these." And I'll pass you my ring.
You can still do that, but I'm gonna basically have like Warren is gonna sort of follow you guys out and lock this door, like close this door behind him. And you're basically gonna see within a few moments, if you guys allow him to pass, he's basically gonna start to walk down here and almost immediately start like dragging the thrall bodies, dropping them down that well, and probably doing the same with the rats. But he's kind of like going down here to the south and starts to like work on this kind of like signs of the foray there.
Yeah, so maybe we're like once we're like around the corner or whatever, and he's not like in our immediate presence. I'll do that.
Davros will kind of nod in gratitude towards Jinx and take the ring and kind of put it on. Like his kind of has to. The ring is probably maybe a little tight on his finger. He's got kind of stubby fingers, but he'll thank Jinx and right and just remind me what's this cult we're in again? Dalton didn't tell me all that much about.
Oh, we're supposed to be the Brotherhood of Venom.
Inside of Discord in the campaign chat, I just like pinned the picture for the broken ring. And that's almost like if you use it as a stamp, what that looks like. Like it's really just like a broken square. And then one of the things that I was thinking about is a lot of old school rings, they weren't like a ring like we know them today, where it's like a complete finished circle. They would make a finished circle, because that's easy for blacksmiths to do, but they would like actually cut the base of the ring so you can expand it and make it fit like any finger you want. But that's just a reminder for what the actual like ring of the Brotherhood of Venom looks like, is that broken square. And again, it's just like a reminder, like they're almost like breaking up society is kind of their thought.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So Dalton will Brotherhood of Venom. Got it. Appreciate it, Gail.
Yeah,
Oh,
about yeah,
my bad, Gail. Go ahead and say that.
yeah. Just gonna down. Yeah, maybe call me Win while we're here. Can I give them a fake name?
I was gonna say you would recognize that when you said your name Win to the dwarf, he didn't know who that is. You guys can also remember like inside of the Brotherhood of Venom, some people might know names, some people might know faces, but in general, you guys know you are Nephrindel's cell. Nobody knows who you are outside of her cell. The Brotherhood doesn't know other members of the Brotherhood.
All right. Win. Got it. What about you, Jinx? You going by something else?
No, I keep saying my real name. I couldn't even come up with a fake name. I tried, but it's not my thing.
That's good. Too many new names. Tough to keep track. One I should be able to do. Win. He'll kind of say it very deliberately. They're trying to like have it stick in his head.
Neverendell like looks at you from behind. She's like almost like hesitant to say it, but she kind of like points to herself and um, Sheriffin, when most of the rest of them were invisible when they've met cultists.
All right. All right. Turrifin, is it?
She like takes a moment to like enunciate it very slowly, just like thinking about it. That she's just like, just hard K. Whatever you say will probably work out.
Turrifin. Got it. All right. He's gonna kind of start down the hallway. He's gonna look to the door on the side. He's like, and then kind of like to the others, and as they catch up, he said there might be more rat folk in that one, right? Than the demons down in the, and he'll kind of gesture down the hallway. And he would have obviously picked up his lantern after we left the room. It's carrying it once again.
I think the rat folk nest was put back towards the hallway, like further, like in one of those hallways next to the where we went. I think this one was supposed to be called them the more cultured ones.
Yeah, probably whoever's in charge.
Hmm. Should we introduce ourselves?
Might not
Very
be a bad
uncertain.
idea.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Might not be a bad idea. I mean, as long as we try to keep it down, the wolf doesn't seem to be. I mean, sort of seems a bit out of it, but I mean, we don't want to like have to kill him too. But
Well, if he's with the ones causing all this trouble in the city, not like he doesn't deserve it.
You would have heard him say some pretty terrible things about like destroying Tolis, like kind of like down with the people of Tolis. Maybe some like hateful things about like the orphans and how horrible they are for society. Kind of things like that. He's not meant to be a good person. Definitely just a frightened one.
So I'll defer to you folks. You got a bit more experience with this whole thing, but if you don't mind my asking, just how long we tend to keep up this charade before we start busting some heads. That's directed towards Jinx and Gale.
I mean, ideally, we could just sort of like continue laying waste to pretty much everything along the way. I mean, I'm not sure what type of communication or whatever they have between them, but I think the goal is to just stop somebody from getting away and warning them that we're coming, but just keep going deeper and deeper until eventually, I mean, full on war, right?
I would probably, this might just be me, but I would probably prefer us making as little splash as possible in the beginning, at least. Try to find out what's going on here before we tear everything down.
Yeah, I mean, we got the element of surprise on our side for now, and ideally, we'd find the king and then just, get out of here with him. Maybe. I mean, if he's even still alive. I would imagine if they know we're coming, though, they'll keep moving him deeper and deeper, further away. We'll never find him then. So,
Fair point. Fair point. So then, and he'll kind of nod towards the door and then back down the hallway. Which way we headed?
I mean, the underling vermins are always good to clear out, but I would imagine if we could take care of the ones in charge, that's definitely not a bad idea. And then the demons after that?
I mean, that seems like a pretty good idea, at least. Take out the leaders, take out big haters, and then clean up the rest.
So this way then, and Dalton will start moving down the hall, kind of waiting to see if the others are following.
Gale just go up before you move forward. He says, "I think that was the way to the demons, if I remember right. Probably check the door first."
Right, right. All right.
All right, so you're going for the room to the north. We having kind of the same idea. You're gonna go Davros and Terry and Gail kind of like watching from behind.
Yeah, Davros doesn't mind being the point person again. He's got the ring now, and he'll yeah. Now he's thinking like we're here on subterfuge. He'll kind of try to like move to open the door and step in like he's supposed to be here, kind of thing.
Same thing with the bullseye lantern, kind of like standing behind you, and it's like shining towards the door.
Yeah, yeah.
Son of a bitch! I had the hide one on. All right, so as you open the door, you're gonna see there's a pretty large kind of room ahead of you. Uh, Probably can't actually see that door right now, but you can kind of see that there's like beyond the 60 feet of normal light. Yeah, so that's all bright light. You can see that there's like a bunch of filth in this room. Clearly, it's still like a Ratman room. still kind of like wafts out of there with like the hot air of this place, just like this garbage and filthy air, just kind of like filling your lungs, like making you want to choke. And you can see kind of in these like piles of filth that there are two at least of these rat men kind of like cowering along inside of the filth. Um, you're gonna try to avoid it kind of like happening right as combat. So how do you kind of approach this where you're looking to identify yourself? Like what are you doing as you open this door? Not necessarily pushing right in and like drawing your sword, but what are you doing as you like open the door? Are you calling out a commandment, like putting your ring up in the air like He-Man? What do you think you're doing here, Davros?
Yeah, so as Davros steps in, his thought is to kind of like raise his hands, not like super high up, but like maybe kind of in front of his face, sort of thing. But like as the smell kind of hits him, he kind of pauses and moves to like maybe like cough a bit and try to you know uh, wave away the worst of the stench. But then he kind of puts his hand up again with like the ring facing out, and is just going to say Brotherhood business, as he kind of steps inside, kind of calling out, kind of loudly enough.
Gotcha. So you're almost using like brotherhood business as like a call to like, we're passing through here. You guys just ignore us.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
Gotcha. Feels kind of along the side of like do a persuasion, but I'm perfectly fine with it being intimidation. If you want to go intimidation and like almost like flexing into it a little bit as a oh wait, you're just a straight fighter now. But I could still see like an intimidation like with strength if you wanted to. But either of those, depending on what you want to do. Intimidation failing, almost guaranteed it's going to go to combat. Persuasion failing, it might be something that still leads to like a conversation.
Yeah, I was almost thinking deception because he's not part of the. Or
Oh
well, I
yeah,
guess.
my bad. You can definitely deceive, but like technically, you guys are actually Brotherhood of Venom. Like, that's one of the things I want you guys to recognize. You could like be deceptive about hating like Tolis, but like you guys are the Brotherhood of Venom.
Okay, yeah, I was just yeah. Okay, so I'll just do persuasion for now.
Gotcha. I mean, you can still do the deception. That's fine. I just wanted to kind of bring that out. And it works because Davros is still new to it. I'm always down to give you guys options on what you roll because I think it gives different results. So, do you want to stick with persuasion or do you want to do what you were first thinking and do a deception?
Maybe this one I'll do persuasion. If he has to have like an actual conversation, try to pretend to be a cult, that's probably when I'd move more to deception.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, walking into the cultured room, you'll definitely kind of recognize like if there's rats that can talk, these are them.
So that'll be a 15 on, or no, yeah, 15. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think that's enough that you kind of like see these like rats, almost like kind of heads coming up from like the filth around this area. Davros might even be able to recognize like that there's like human bones like inside of this like filth that they're round scurrying through, scouring. So
Scrounging.
like scrounging, yes, that was the word I was looking for. But like this is one of those things you're not like adverse to these smells. When you were looking for Dalton and he was first taken, like a lot of what you guys were dealing with were these rats. So like to recognize ones that would even be called even in a hateful way, kind of cultured is something else. You know, the rats with guns is something else that you were kind of like new to experiencing. But as you kind of like walk into this, you're gonna hear like the dirtiest kind of like reply of common coming out of these rats that would again be damn near shocking to basically recognize like these things have actually come beyond simply speaking their own like ratman language. And they're starting to actually kind of approach like this sense of common. And you just kind of have like this horrific like almost grinding noise of common sort of replied to you. And it's just probably something like along the lines of like Our will leads our follow assistance or and they just kind of like bite into another bone feed. And it's just kind of a rough like idea to say like they're looking for, do you need them to help you? Are you calling on them or are you just passing through?
Yeah, so Davros will he'll kind of respond, just kind of give like a wave of his hand, um, again with the ring, kind of as you were. Um, I'll need you. And I think Seamus will kind of pick up the lantern that's sitting out in the hallway and kind of bring it into the room, as he kind of files in behind.
Yeah, so if everybody's filing behind, are you guys taking this opportunity to basically like move up on the rats and you're gonna like coup de grace? Are you guys gonna take this opportunity to just move through this room and go for that door?
Davros's thought, at least, is just move to the door. Um,
Does that sound like what we're doing with Jinx, Gale, and the other sidekicks?
Yeah, seems okay to me.
So as you guys like approach that next door, uh, what were you thinking there, Jinx?
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh, my bad. You rolled a die. I didn't know if that was like you trying to decide on something.
Oh wait, I did.
Oh yeah, I thought I just saw something. It's no worries. So as you guys like move through, uh, Davros can open this next door. Immediately a little bit fresher air kind of comes through. This is almost like maybe not say fresh, in that there is movement of air. It's slightly fresher than like the stagnant air of this room with both doors shut. But you do kind of immediately kind of pick up on like the sounds of a waterfall. Like as soon as the uh, door is kind of cracked, that's going to kind of happen. There's like a little bit of rush of like almost the pressure of the air kind of coming through, and it almost draws a breeze through this area. I don't want to think entirely of which way, where is when, what direction the breeze is going through. So I'm just going to say there's a breeze through the area. Um, I think maybe it would be through the door and into that northeast. But basically, as you open the door, you'll kind of see another very roughly hewn. Oh, I gotta like. Oh, Bear Rodeo is crashing for me constantly. You see like another roughly hewn kind of room, and the room kind of opens up after about 20 or so feet, and you can kind of see a pool of water and a ramp that almost like kind of walks down towards the water. But you also see up and around there's like a higher ledge that kind of like looks down and over. And on the opposite side, probably just outside of the bright light, you can see the water kind of like falling into a cascade down into this pit. For Terry and those with night vision, they can see, or dark vision, they can see without any problem. But effectively, you can kind of spot like this room is like some sort of like natural sort of cavern where the water is kind of cascading in. Within, you can pretty much immediately see, I don't think I sized them correctly, but two large, like rat-like creatures. And immediately as the door opens, you see as like their heads kind of like perk up and look towards you. Let me have it looks like Jinx and Davros were sort of in the front of things. Jinx and Davros make nature check. Gale was probably standing behind. Let me just have all of you make nature.
That's a 12 for Davros.
18 for Gale.
And 17 for Jinx.
Gotcha. So pretty quickly, I'm not sure if you guys have fought these. I can't really keep track all the time. But these are gigantic, like rat creatures. A little bit more than humans, a little bit less than simply like rat. But immediately as their like faces kind of turn to you, you're not really seeing any sort of intelligence in their eyes. Um, what is your initial thought as this thing that you're likely about to encounter on a instinctual level kind of makes contact with your personage, Davros?
So I think Davros's hands are going to go for his weapon, and he's going to. Actually, I'm just going to roll to see if he's quick thinking enough to say this. He is not. So yeah, I think he's just gonna, his hand's going to go to his weapon, and he's going to just kind of give like a little shout of "Be ready!" Kind of back behind him, and otherwise kind of, I guess, hold his ground kind of there as he goes to draw his weapon.
Gotcha. So yeah, I'm gonna give you that level of you can be the first to kind of do things. And I'll effectively give you you're holding your action for if one kind of smashes into you, that you can attack. But otherwise, let me have everybody roll initiative, and we'll see if the other two can add to any thoughts prior to this happening, or what kind of goes down here.
17 for Davros on initiative.
21 for Gale.
And 15 for Jinx.
Son of a bitch! I've never added their profile to my notes. All right, so Gail, what is your reaction to seeing these like over Davros's shoulder? You kind of see like the lack of intelligence in these creatures' eyes as they like look up. What are you thinking, Gail?
I'm thinking Gale is gonna like seeing how it worked for Davros with the like, showing of the ring for the other rats, and like even though recognize that there doesn't seem to be much intelligence behind those eyes, but hopefully like some kind of command on them. Like try to like openly show the ring, but very much probably more fascinated by these things by now. As long as they're not hating us.
Gotcha. So you're just gonna double down to give them like a command to kind of like stand down as you're like holding up your finger in your hand to like display the ring to them.
Yeah, like hopefully it works.
Are you walking beyond Davros? Are you trusting that much to your commanding them?
Yeah, I mean, I think in Gale's mind it would be that would work. Yeah, so he's gonna be moving forward.
Gotcha. Yeah, so let me just have you do that. Do you want this to be persuasive? Are you trying to intimidate them?
I'll probably be persuasive because definitely not intimidating.
Excellent. Yeah, go for a persuasion here.
Yeah, that's a 19 with a nat 20.
A -1. Excellent. Um, let's see. I'm gonna have from behind you, you kind of hear again in like that broken common. Um, you hear no, no, and then you just hear like this horrendous kind of like screeching and like almost clicking, kind of in a little bit more of what you're used to sort of hearing, like the rat sort of speaking as one of the rat lords kind of like runs up between and kind of like pushes um maybe not pushes Davros out of the way, but like goes to push you, Davros, and you just kind of like stone stance are not like moved in the least bit as this tiny little rat goes to like push on you and kind of just further pushes itself like into Gale's like back. But it like goes up to Gale and it's going to try to basically like for what it's worth here, this is up to you, Gale, but it's going to put its hands on you and it's trying to pull you back. It is effectively grappling you. It's up to you whether you allow this thing to grapple you or whether you are going to fight it because it is still a rat. It is still a rat man. So, are you kind of like trusting these first two screeches of a no as it kind of moves forward to you and tries to grapple you?
I probably, yeah, it's not gonna like fight back at it, but it's gonna be what are you doing?
All right, you're not fighting back, you said?
Yeah, no, I'm letting him like drag me away because
Gotcha. It almost like interjects basically. It goes to pull you back and puts itself between you and it. And you just kind of see as it like holds up this like three-fingered like clawed hand and it's just kind of like putting its hands out to these creatures. And you're still like hearing these like rat-like screeches. Um all of this is essentially happening at the same time. So I want to allow this full kind of like turn to go through because you don't necessarily have to notice this, but it's going to you then, Davros. What are you thinking?
Okay, so this is this essentially after the held action is considered a new round, or is he still
Effectively, I'll put you on a new round here.
okay? So um, I think he's going to look to Gale as the rat is like kind of starting to pull him back, and I guess it's probably pretty clear that Gale is not resisting. So I think he's going to
Yeah, if you're giving any of your attention to what just happened with them, it definitely looks like this thing has pulled Gale out of danger. It's not like it's like judo throwing Gale into the wall.
yeah, okay. So I think Davros is going to yeah, he's not really sure what he was expecting to see on the other side of this door, but he is going to um, I think he's going to kind of still hold or not really hold well he's going to like step back a bit kind of following along as the rat folk is dragging Gale, but otherwise essentially keeping his eyes on these things and still ready to kind of defend if they do come rushing. So
Gotcha.
just another held action essentially. uh,
Gotcha. Yeah, it has it. It's no longer like even holding on to Gale. It moved him out of the way, like swap spaces, like a king in a castle, like
okay,
castling in chess. It took kind of Gale's space, and now it's like just holding a hand up towards these creatures, in a stop like motion to them.
gotcha. Okay, so yeah, so he'll basically kind of maybe just take like a step or two back, but otherwise kind of hold his ground and just
Sounds
wait.
good. Staying close to Gale, you're not like falling back with Gale, but you're staying next to Gale, but otherwise not advancing forward. And then it'll take us to Jinx.
I'll just sort of like hang tight back here for a second and potentially, if it gets rough, like dispatch this rear rat.
Gotcha. Are you holding an action with this? Are you like just looking for like a hostility and you're gonna cast the spell? Are you looking for hostility that you would throw a boomerang?
Yeah, I'll sort of like just reach down and grab hold of my boomerang.
Gotcha. I think you're gonna see from that one at this point. Um, let me see. Oh, I'm like moving too fast. The dice roller couldn't even keep up with me. Um, yeah, it's just gonna kind of push forward, and it's like approaching around where it gets to the doorway, as it's kind of like this one isn't nearly as like vocal as the other one. um Still kind of like struggling to get out some words, but you just kind of hear it saying like uh maybe like nose, like interspersed with like the screeching of like a rat's language. But it's not going to get too much more forward than right up to the door right beside you there, Jinx, and doesn't seem to be like drawing a weapon or anything. So at present, I don't think you have anything kind of like hostile from it. So this is where I'm kind of curious um on Davros to just like roll a d20. And it's like I think intuition is perfect for this, but basically what I have in mind is happening are these two things are rushing forward, and basically right at the hand of this rat lord, it's like they're stopping on a dime as if like momentum doesn't exist. They're just full tilt running and then just stopping in a dime. I'm curious whether Davros is like holding his composure, or is like just like attacking and going for like the death blow. Like it's up to you whether you want to put it to a roll. It's up to you whether you have an action in mind for how you act to it. But like that's what they're doing if you were not there holding an action. And I'm curious how Davros would react to this creature that's, it's not quite twice your height, but it's probably about 12 feet. They're gigantic rats in physical form, but they have human-like qualities in that their arms are probably the size of like your torso. Their bodies themselves are probably hundreds, 400 or so pounds, like 300 kilos, I think, kind of like comparatively. Like they're pretty huge, massive creatures running at you full tilt. What do you think Davros would do?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna put it to a roll to see if he recognizes that they're not like just attacking.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's like to recognize like does the rat lord have control? So yeah, I think you could probably go for intuition is what I think of as a solid one. The nature check is also an option. Uh or insight, not intuition. Same thing.
Yeah, I was either that or animal handling. Although it's not really me doing the animal handling, so
Animal handling works. I mean, it's still the idea of the wisdom. If you've got proficiency in that, I think that's perfectly fine. Because there it's this is the animal brain is kind of what I was getting at. These things don't have like an intelligence brain sort of thing. When you talk about like the animal, the lizard, and the human brain kind of thing.
yeah. So maybe I don't know. Maybe it maybe it looks slightly different if they're coming to attack, like in terms of like what they're doing with their mouths and their teeth and whatever. So maybe I'll do an animal handling check to see if I can recognize that they're not just lunging at us to attack.
Excellent.
That's a 5, so I don't think he
Sounds like
recognizes.
that sounds like make an attack.
Yeah, so I think he will, but I think he does see, like, the rat thing is like, he hears no. I think he at least can see that it's trying to control them. So I think he will essentially, he's going. I mean, it doesn't matter at this point, but essentially, just for flavor, he's gonna go kind of more slashing out with like the flat of his blade, trying to like smack the thing rather than cut into it too deeply, but still hard. If that makes sense.
All right, all right. I can kind of see this. So give me an attack roll here, and basically make it disadvantaged. Like this isn't disadvantage like will you miss. This is like disadvantage. We want it to miss kind of thing. That you're almost just like slapping it with the blade on a miss.
Right. So that would be a 17.
Yeah, so I feel like it's kind of legitimate to say that like Davros, as it like comes towards you, you almost like slash your blade across it, and instead of like cutting into this creature's like flesh and opening it up, you're almost like just smashing into the bottom of its jaw, and it's just one of those things where it's like hitting the button on a creature, and you just kind of like go where this thing just kind of like, I don't know, just kind of like has an off switch, and the rat brute just kind of like slams down right in front of this little rat as the other one like comes to a complete stop, and like, what is it, kind of goes to Gale here, but effectively that's going to kind of like give you guys an opportunity to sort of like deal with these things. But you basically kind of like, it's not down and out for a whole combat, but it just kind of is like dazed on the ground, almost like in a boxing match where you get like that first like hit that shows like a boxer's like been rung, and the other one like comes sliding to a stop at the hand of the rat lord right in front of you. What are you thinking here? My bad, my mic would have cut, might have cut out like right before asking Gail. What are you thinking?
Okay, yeah, I was just about to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in Gale having seen all this, them rushing and like the rat lord doing his like no and then like rat chirping at them, is probably gonna back off a bit, even if they seem to have stopped. But he's very much like, I need to get a bit further away from things that can smash my face in.
Gotcha. And Davros, do you kind of like follow? Are you continuing to attack? Do you kind of appreciate at this point that maybe the Rat Lord has kind of like? Oh wait, no, he actually does react here first before you. My bad. Um, yeah, the Lord's just gonna kind of like look to Davros with like again like struggled common, where it just kind of like looks um ah kind of complicated language, but I feel like it's like no, kill. Understand, and it like clicks in like the rat language. Um, not no kill. I no kill, and it's just kind of like it's like lacking for ways to express what it's trying to get, but you just kind of hear it saying no and kill. But it kind of like just is like holding its hand to these two brutes as if there's like a wall between them now. What's Davros gonna do in his reaction there?
Yeah. So Davros, kind of looking to the rat thing, and now he's just gonna kind of like give like a almost like a disappointed shake of his head, um, looking at the rat thing, and these things need to be better trained. Um, Essentially, kind of trying to play up the idea that like we're like, kind of the higher up in the higher. I mean, he's thinking like the rat things are, lower down the cult hierarchy than uh, we are, and then otherwise is going to, kind of after saying that, essentially disengage, probably still kind of blade like down now at his side, but still out, and will move towards the entryway.
Gotcha. Does that sound like where people are going to let this sort of finish? Do you have any thoughts what Jinx is thinking here?
I'm not really sure, honestly, because I kind of thought we were gonna see like more of like the overlings. I wasn't expecting like the brute type situation. So I'm not really sure what I would do. I guess I'll just like hold tight for one more sec. Like maybe if I see any further hostilities, I'm gonna grapple the rat right in front of me.
Gotcha. So if you're just kind of like holding off, like looking to see where things progress, it's just kind of like cowering between Gale and Davros as it continues into this room. And you just kind of like see again, this one doesn't have like the same command of common. The other one has very few words, and it's just sort of kind of cowering and sort of saying like, um, you're probably getting like no out of it, and it might be trying to say train, but it probably just doesn't have like even such a complex word as train. But it's just kind of sort of saying like no as it kind of cowers between the two of you. And then you see as like it approaches the other one, and they're immediately kind of like already chattering towards these bigger brute things. But at this point, you guys can basically see like their attention is towards the brutes. The brutes are currently sort of held in place here, and you guys are just like right around that door. This is sort of like what he was kind of giving you as like these are part of like the rat colony, tends to be up here around this waterfall area. Would be like the cultured ones. They kind of hold to this room. So you could leave this behind you. You could set like some sort of ambush and just turn on them real quick if you wanted to try to finish them in one quick go. Or you could just like move along and continue on to where feel like I said the temple and then the demons from Warren. Do you
Yeah, I
guys
think.
do you guys want to think about that while we take a quick break? It's like right about 5 right now.
Yeah, sure, that works.
So let's take 5. If you need longer, we'll get started once everybody's back, but let's take a quick restroom break.
I'm back.
Yeah, I'm still here as well.
Yep, and I'm here as well.
What are you guys thinking? Do you have like an inclination now to kind of like jump attack them? Do we want to just kind of try to move past them and leave them behind?
Yeah, so I was thinking, or Davros is thinking, like for now, kind of just leave him behind. Um, Presumably, the big rat creatures are kept in that area, so he's almost thinking like if we, um, you know, better to just kind of leave them behind for now, and we know they're here because we don't know what else we might run into, so we don't have to fight them right now. Maybe best not to kind of expend ourselves.
Are all 3 of you back right now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Are you all pretty well set on that idea of holding off and sort of leaving these guys behind you?
I'm fine with that idea.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Gotcha. So as you sort of like push away and I assume head back to the south, like through that hall, you basically just hear like sort of like the hissing of the rat lords behind you as they're like scolding these brutes kind of thing. But you know, you can like shut the door behind you if you wanted to. Depending on how it goes, they just kind of like fade out. But theoretically, you guys leave these things as they're basically like attending to your command, like train these better.
Yeah, Davros would. Yeah, well, he'll be like kind of probably like the first one back out the door, but he's thinking, yeah, we'll just close the door and kind of leave them to it. And he's almost thinking like if we, if we had to get into a fight and we had to retreat, we know these things probably without those rat things will probably just attack anything. Um, but yeah, otherwise he's also hoping that they aren't smart enough to think like, wait, he said Brotherhood business. What was he talking about? Um, but otherwise, yeah, he's just kind of ready to he's heading down the hallway again. And at this point, maybe he'll just have Seamus kind of holding the lantern rather than himself.
Gotcha. Yeah, so as you guys approach into this room, you're going to see immediately as you get closer and closer something kind of like lingering in the center of the room before you get close enough that you can see that there's like a statue at the center of this room. You would have heard Warren kind of describe, I think either like the temple or the sanctuary kind of situation. Um, but you'll kind of like pick up, um, yeah, I think there's candles kind of like scattered across the ground in this room as you like kind of approach forward. I don't believe, yeah, there's not actually anything like living inside of this room. But you can kind of like see like symbols kind of drawn all over the place. And you'll start to pick up before you can see the walls. Um, Probably Gale would be the first to notice that there's symbols for the different chaos parties or chaos gods kind of drawn across the ground, and like many of these are like around different candles, or candles are in the configurations of these different symbols. So sometimes the candles are like drawn or like placed across like these spirals. Sometimes the spirals are like around candles. There's like black hands burnt into pieces. So there's a lot of the different chaos symbols from that book that you guys have seen are kind of like marked off onto this ground. But as you actually enter through the door, you're going to see that the ceiling of this place is vaulted. So it's almost like a pyramid kind of like growing up into the stonework to where it's about 25 or 30 feet tall above this statue. I believe the statue is of a very much demonic creature. Horns sitting astride like some sort of like burning beast, as if the beast itself is like in flames. The humanoid sort of sitting on top of it with these horns has these like bat like fleshy wings. And this thing's just kind of like astride this oh wait, maybe actually humanoid torso, horse-like body, or four-legged like body. It's actually like a hybrid creature like that. I think that actually kind of fits better. So it has like this like humanoid like body on top with this demonoid like head that has these horns. Very like beast like hair kind of coming down like its head. You can sort of see it across some of the like flesh of the chest. Otherwise, like a what are horses, like the genus of horses? It's not necessarily a horse body, but I feel like that kind of like idea of a four-legged creature, very much like a minotaur. It is not in particularly a minotaur. It is purely like a demonoid statue here, and you can see that it is sort of the focus of this room. As you all approach, though, every can I have everyone make a uh, let's go Arcana check here because I think Gale is like guaranteed to succeed. But let's see, Jinx will be good. Davros,
No idea.
yeah, and then Gale, yeah, that's still what, like a 19.
Yeah, that's exactly a 19.
Yeah, so I would say Gale and Jinx, as you're like approaching into this room, like the first step, Jinx might feel something's weird, but like Gale would almost like recognize this like pulse of chaotic power the moment you step into this room. And for Gale, at least, let's liken this to the same reason that the inverted pyramid is a pyramid structure. The way the geometry works, the stone itself channels power into the mages of the inverted pyramid. And immediately upon stepping into this room, you're feeling like an inverse sort of effect where this room is channeling power. And you can immediately recognize that it is very much perverted towards the chaos gods than necessarily like the arcane pursuits of the inverted pyramid. This is something, this room is deeply dangerous.
I think Gale would be. We should be careful here, guys. This room definitely is dangerous. So
What do you think the something to do with the statue? As Davros still kind of oblivious to the. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe he feels like subconsciously, but like he just kind of keeps moving towards the statue because he's not picking up on this kind of arcanic energy that Gale and Jinx are kind of noticing.
Jinx, are you the only one who would like, this is for all of you, but is am I correct to say Jinx is the only one who would be chaotic in alignment in this group? I think Terry would be like a chaotic neutral. But does anybody else think they identify their character as chaotic something?
no, Gale is definitely a lawful good type.
You know, I think of Davros as more kind of like neutral good, like edging towards lawful, but
Yeah, and I'm definitely chaotic.
Do you think you're chaotic neutral, chaotic good, chaotic evil?
I would say still chaotic neutral for now, maybe starting to edge a little bit towards chaotic good as I've been doing like more good lately.
Gotcha. So for the purpose of this recognition, I'm gonna go on a little bit more of where you're just like character and not necessarily like where you're going. So as you all kind of approach this, and this will be sort of more clear as you guys like move. There's always conversation that you guys aren't necessarily having where you kind of like learn more and more things here. But like there's definitely a level of Terry and Jinx are going to be noticing that the statue in the center of this room is actually like shimmering, like this light is coming off of it. And it's not a white light, it's not a yellow light, it's not warm, cold. It's like gray and like forlorn. It's very much a different sort of feeling, and it's gonna kind of like just be that recognition like this is an unnatural light, and the two of you can decide how you would speak about it, how the others might come about learning that you're noticing this or that they might not be. But on some level, the two of them with chaotic natures are basically going to recognize that there is some sort of significance to that statue, that the pulsing of this room is in some level like the channeling of this structure, the geometry is channeling into that statue, and that statue is giving off some sort of like effect towards those who effectively are chaotic in their nature. And it's basically something that Jinx and Perry are noticing here as it again shimmers gray.
So I think naturally we would both be like drawn towards it to like see if we feel like more powerful as we get closer to it, or like just out of like the kind of curiosity of it. I think you would probably notice that we're like a little bit like awestruck as we approach it, normally going from like cautious and more orderly to like kind of like curious and like excited a little bit.
Almost like a giddy abandon, as like you're no longer like approaching anything with any question. You're just sort of like nonchalantly like rushing towards it.
Yeah, exactly. More like kind of just coming out of like our normal like kind of like orderly like function in the group, and more like letting like the curiosity and excitement kind of get the best of us.
Let me have you do a your choice for Jinx, perception or investigation, and it can be at advantage here as Terry goes along with you. Should be successful. You've got a +2, I think, regardless, because of um the bard's jack of all trades.
Yeah, it's 21 for either one of those.
Yeah, so as you approach, you see this isn't specifically a statue. The statue rests atop, but this is like the platform itself is a sepulcher, a like gravestone, like a tomb. And you can basically see like the ever finest sort of like cut in the stone that this whole statue sort of resting atop this structure is the lid. And you don't know how heavy it would be, but you at least see the sign that this lid is something that seals this thing shut more than that there is simply a statue here. There is something entombed here.
Yeah, so Jinx is gonna look over at Terry and say, "Ooh, what is inside of there? Maybe we should see."
Do you think you are touching? What did you think you were rolling? Were you doing like a perception? Were you doing an investigation? Investigation tends to be more physical, where I think you would be touching it. Perception tends to be a little bit more visual.
So I think perception as we approach, but I think that if nobody in the party like says or does anything, I think Jinx would sort of like walk along the long side of it, and sort of like the way somebody would like white glove inspect something, he would sort of like put his finger out and just sort of like rub it down the side as he walks, like just kind of like curiously touching it.
Does it sound viable that the others are sort of just watching as Jinx kind of like white gloves this stone to see like is it dusty? Is it something?
Yeah, I think like Davros might just like kind of careful Jinx, but is not going to otherwise move to like try and stop him from touching it or anything like that.
So Davros can kind of pick out the like presumed weight of this statue sitting atop the sepulcher. Like this thing would be in the double digit tons. This should be thousands, tens of thousands of pounds. Uh, what is that, like 7 to like 15,000 kilos kind of thing? Like there's a massive amount of weight in this stone structure. And Jinx just kind of like rubbing his finger across this side. You just hear like the grinding of stone on stone as this structure just sort of slides away from Jinx. And you just see the opening along that kind of like long facet. Yeah. Um like the opening along that like long facet, and there's just immediately kind of like a little bit of a crack that opens up, and you just see almost like an ooze of flesh. It looks sort of like pinkish or reddish, but it's like coming out of the crack of this sepulcher, and it is just like squishing out before it kind of takes a little bit more of a form. What are your reactions as this starts to initially happen?
I think if Davros sees this stuff starting to come out, he's going to at that point now he's going to start kind of move over towards Jinx's side and be like, close it, and try to like he has no idea how it moved so smoothly, and he's almost going to try to like depending on which way it opened, try to pull it essentially or push it back closed.
Gotcha. Who has religious proficiency here?
Gale does.
Davros does not.
No, I just have like the bard, like mini proficiency.
Gotcha. So let me get a strength check from Davros as you're like pushing, like to see how much like effort you're putting into that. You're gonna fail, but I want to know how much effort, like how much you tried. And then let me get religion from the other two here.
Yeah, so that'll be an 18 total.
Yeah, so
Like
you
3.
gotcha. So Jinx is still kind of like entrapped with this idea. Um, But as this like ooze starts to like come out and it's starting to form into a fleshy form, and you're starting to at least recognize some of the signs that this ooze coming from within is starting to take this form of this chaos beast like creature. Davros is pushing against this thing with all of his might, and you can actually see like a point where like he's got like do you still carry a hammer, or are you primarily with the sword?
Yeah, he left his small hammer thing behind, so now he's mostly just a sword.
Gotcha. So it might even be like the level of like recognizing like the sword's still in like one hand, and he's like pushing against this stone trying to shut this lid, and like the blades actually like scratching into the stone where you're having like little bits of dust like cut away simply from him pushing. You're pushing with all of your might. But this thing took no effort to open with the touch of a finger, and Gale is just in this recognition of like this is some sort of worshiping chamber. What do you do inside of a chamber where you are meant to worship a god? Because there is a godlike creature coming out here. You give them gifts and you give them praise.
Would only Gale recognizes that, or we like kind of all recognize that?
I mean, I would say this is kind of one of those classic things where I'm telling it to you all because effectively Gail should be like yelling this out to everybody, unless Chris wants to specifically allow something bad to be happening here, kind of thing. Which I don't think his character has reason to do. He can hold back that information and ask you guys to treat it as meta. But my point in telling a group is in general to be like, Gail's character is like, hey, this is something we need to do.
Okay, so like as I continue to kind of circle around this thing, still like enamored by it, I'll reach down into my pouch and I'm gonna pull out Ada's Skull of Chaos and I'll like present it.
And I think Davros kind of on Gale's warning will stop trying to close the lid by realizing that there's he could be here for 1,000 years and never get it closed. And will kind of like back move to back away, kind of like almost like kind of falling to the ground in like a kind of very deferential sort of pose, but not really clear on what's going on. That's kind of all he's kind of can do. He's almost like looking down at the ground and kind of like falling to a knee, sort of thing.
What do you think you're doing with Gail? What kind of thoughts do you think you're having?
Yeah, I'm thinking very much terrified out of my mind, but yeah, falling onto a knee, like getting ready to sing some praises, and hopefully he'll like Yink's gift.
Gotcha. So when you say like getting ready to like give praise, like is it something that you're hoping not to, that you're trying to avoid it? Or is it just more like you're just thinking like it's not the first thought, like dropping to a knee is your first thought, like praise will come after?
It's drove to the end and like probably hoping not to have to sing the praises, but like prepare myself to do it is like focus on me.
Gotcha. So I don't get the impression that you guys are like so hesitant that you like kind of deny it as it basically like um in less of a question and more of an imperative. It basically gives this sort of like response as it grabs this skull from Jinx and you see as its hand like envelops it and its flesh starts to like fill the skull's cavities and then you see as the skull like splits apart into almost like 15 pieces. Like I don't know if everybody knows, but like skulls start as a bunch of different pieces and they fuse together as we're infants, and like all of those fusion points kind of like open up and the skull almost like expands with these spaces of open air between it as its flesh kind of like extends from its hand into the skull and fills those voids. And this thing is like relishing in the power as it's like consuming this skull inside of its hand. And you see is like the beast like form of this thing like perverts into this like bloated massive form as it just like oozes more and more out of this structure, and it just sort of like is kind of like allowing these pulses of energy, allowing this skull and all of these things to just sort of like strengthen this form, and it's like perverting them in return. And it just sort of like then like there's like an echo through the chamber. You don't even necessarily see this creature actually speaking, but the voice of command um is sort of like to the extent of it's like, now is where you worship. So I assume you guys aren't going to deny at this point where it is basically commanding you to worship.
Yeah, I mean, in like in Davros' case, it's definitely more the fearful obeisance than like the sort of thing he would normally worship. But it's like pragmatically speaking, it's like, well, it's worship or die, so he'll choose worship.
I think Jinx is definitely gonna have a sort of like come to reality moment and realize like he doesn't know what he's doing. He's kind of like in over his head. a matter of fact, that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna drop down to his knees. He's gonna say, "I'm in over my head. I'm in over my head," and he's just gonna start worshiping from his knees.
Gotcha. So this thing is just kind of like allowing all of this to sort of happen around it. You guys can almost see like the air around your voices kind of like taking sort of form as these like tendrils are almost like extending like between your mouth. Like the voice is almost like it's like slowing as it's passing through this like mire in the air, and it's taking like a physical form, and you can almost see these like slithering sort of tentacles like in these moments, and it's still very much like in the air. It's not specifically a physical thing, but this is just sort of like in that moment this creature is like perverting even the words of your worship. Even the air around it is kind of turning to this like chaotic nature as this thing is just like rushing in, and there's just going to be a like spark of this gray pulse of light. All of your um magical light is going to go out, and I think Seamus carrying the bullseye lantern is going to be the only bit of light as this entire room, hundreds of candles all around the room, and those magical lights are all going to be snuffed out in an instant. Um, Damn, should I even have I think it would make sense even actually to say that Seamus's too is like snuffed out and just in a moment where everything just goes dark.
Yeah, and I'm gonna roll something for Seamus. Okay, he manages to keep hold of the lantern. I was thinking he might be so scared by this whole development that he would just drop it and risk breaking it, but I think he like he's definitely kind of just as frightened as the others, but he manages to hold on to the now stuffed out lantern.
So it might take you guys a moment. It might take you a few to start to cast light spells again. You might have Seamus like sparking his um, flint and iron to like relight the lantern. But as those like first like sparks of light, the first like rays of light kind of pass through this room, you're going to see that this creature, this oozed like being that came out of the statue, does not seem to be present. The statue seems to have like returned to place. Mm, I think the candles in this room would be effectively gone. I don't think there's any reason to say like the one in Seamus's lantern is gone, but effectively like all of the candles that like aligned all of these symbols of chaos around this room have like disappeared in that sort of instant. But you guys are now like inside of an empty room. There's the open door behind you, an open door to the south, and then again this like almost like chaos bestial minotaur statue in front of you, no longer pulsing gray to those with the chaos uh, alignment.
Yeah, so Davros is going to kind of like he like kind of keeps his head down like for a bit after like they manage to get the light again, and finally he kind of like looks around, very almost like surreptitiously, um, and then kind of like let's get the hell out of here. And he's gonna kind of like stand up and start moving. I think towards the doorway to the south.
And
But
rather
clearly,
than casting light initially, Jinx is going to light up a cigarette, and then I want to roll to see if I perceive that as something that would make me like more inclined towards evil or more inclined towards like pulling away from evil towards good. So like Maybe high is good, low is evil.
Gotcha. I mean, you could attach it to an actual roll where you have like bonuses as well, but I think a flat die roll is also legitimate as well.
Yeah,
In
and
which
also,
case,
like, if it's like a 20, it's like really good. If it's like a 1, it's like really evil type thing.
gotcha. Sounds good.
So a 2. So I think that Jinx is definitely feeling like intrigued by the kind of evil power.
And I think that fits in a lot of ways. You guys have seen, even when trying to use these things for good, there's plenty of uses for, and again, keep in mind, this is more chaos than necessarily evil. There's plenty of room to use chaos for good. There's plenty of room to use chaos for evil, but like chaos is its own thing. So you can interpret it how you want, like the good and evil aspect of it. But specifically, these are like chaotic influences.
Yeah, I look at it as like chaotic in nature for sure. But I've tried to use this skull like in a bunch of situations, like to help the party and like along my like quest towards becoming like more good. And it has like failed me. But I haven't been able to like get rid of it like this whole time. And it felt like it was for something. So I think now it sort of feels like it had a purpose and that like maybe it had to do with my purpose.
Does Jinx have any tattoos?
Not like anything meaningful necessarily, but like probably just like some dumb trash that he like got along the way.
Gotcha. Let me have you roll a perception check for me.
So it'd be a 14.
Gotcha. Do you remember what that skull was called again?
Yeah, it's called Adas
Okay.
Skull of Chaos. AD apostrophe AAHS.
As you like spark your cigarette, you start to notice like you don't know like right off the bat, like let's say what it means, but you think for a moment, like in the spark of light, that like all of your tattoos have like changed, but then like you spark like the second time and like light your cigarettes, and like as you like take that first drag, you see like all of your tattoos are back to like normal. But like for an instant, you felt like all of your tattoos, like all of your flesh was like covered in tattoos of some sort of writing that you didn't notice, but it was just for an instant there. And that'll be more something that you can pursue towards the future and like learn more about.
And I think meanwhile, probably like the thoughts that are going through Davros's head are almost more like kind of like at least like a temporary kind of almost sense of like despair, like this is the sort of thing where we might be up against. Like there's no way we can defeat this sort of thing. Like the Tolis is doomed. That was why I that was my that D20 roll. I was essentially doing like a wisdom save kind of for his internal thought process.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like levels of you guys can fight a lot of this stuff. I think there's also plenty to recognize as well from your characters' perspectives, where like a lot of this stuff also you can fight it and you can kill it in the physical plane, but it's not dead. So like killing it in the physical plane just means now it has a grudge against you. So there's definitely like I feel like that level of despair is one of those things to recognize as well.
I'm sure you guys
Yeah,
have all seen like the Indiana Jones movies, but like picture like that type of situation as kind of like the situation where they find like a powerful artifact or something like that, and it sort of like consumes your free will temporarily, and then all of a sudden you realize you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's like even if we were successful, it's like all we've done is buy time until and eventually somebody won't be around to stop it, kind of thing. But I think like Davros in his like kind of urgency to get out of this room will like not even kind of really like try to look to see like what's beyond in the south. He'll just kind of like move through the doorway, like very pointedly not looking behind him back at the statue in the statue's direction.
And I'm deleting that skull from my inventory.
Yep, yep. That was part of why. That was part of why I wanted to write it down was because I was going to ask you to do that. But yes, uh, did you say the skull of Raoul the first time though when you used?
Oh, I've definitely called it the Skull of Oro like 20 times, just like meta, but
No, no, because when I went to like write it down, I was like writing down the skull of Raoul, and then I'm like, that's not the right name. Yeah, so as you guys open this next door and Davros just starts to like move out of this, you're going to very quickly kind of recognize like the stench of fetid water kind of like flowing from this room. There's like the trickle of a waterfall falling from the ceiling. It is not like a fast pace falling of water, but it's also not like slow enough that it's simply just like dripping. It's definitely a flow, just a slower flow. And you can pretty quickly kind of recognize this is like a crack in the ceiling from the sewers above. And this is like drainage from the sewers. There is a crack into the earth below that the water is flowing down into, so it's not like building up into this room. But as you open this door, the smell overtakes you. The sound of the water is kind of trickling. You feel like you can hear some voices in the room. I just want to get like a perception check here as that like initial sense of there's something conversing here continues, like to see if anybody's actually picking it up.
That's an 18 for Davros.
That feels pretty
17 for
good.
him.
and 12.
Gotcha. I think maybe Jinx isn't necessarily picking anything up about it, but pretty clear that you can kind of recognize like the voices in it. Um, do either Gale or Davros have any sort of like deep or demonoid languages? I don't believe Gale does, but I don't have my cheat sheet anymore on your languages. Does Davros speak anything remotely towards the like shit, what is the name for demons and devils?
Like
Fiendish.
no,
Fiendish languages.
no, he is common, dwarven, and elvish, so strictly.
Oh, he fits with the group. That's what all of you have been doing. It works pretty good for the tallest languages because it's the languages creatures in Tola speak. So yeah, as you guys kind of open it up, you would hear again, it's very much like almost like a cacophony to your ears to hear the fiendish languages spoken. But as you open up this door with all of the other senses kind of coming through, the three of you can kind of pick up or at least understand that there is some sort of conversation and it is being held by fiends in this next room. I'm going to say at present, you can see past into the next doorway, some like 70 or so feet away from you. And we'll just say that at present you just don't hear or you don't see the demon.
Gotcha. So Davros kind of he feels like this, like, the fetid water, the stench is kind of overpowering, and he's not. Um, well, he doesn't really know. Yeah, so he can't make out what language these voices are, or if they are voices, or like not entirely. But he somehow, like, some small part of him feels better just not being in that room with the statue anymore. And he's going to try to essentially, like almost like physically kind of like shake, like, kind of shake himself off, like, kind of, roll his shoulders and kind of maybe crack his head from side to side, crack his neck. Um, and then trying to remember that, like, we're pretending to be kind of like, cultists who belong here. He's going to kind of like, straighten up again, and I think, kind of with a look back towards the others, start moving further into the this room. Seamus will kind of follow behind, still with the now relit lantern.
Yeah, I think Jinx kind of like hanging back a little bit, like introspectively, maybe like taking a little too long of a drink from his flask, enjoying his cigarette.
All right. So as you approach into the room, you're gonna see off on like the right side for you, the western side for us as players watching this screen. You're. Oh, I gotta move. You're gonna see the two different creatures that are like conversing in this fiendish language. One of these creatures is sort of like down this hall, sort of like just in sight, but down like in the hallway. And it is very much a like dark, demonic, fiendish creature that like you can see that doesn't, it has like a humanoid body and that it has two arms, two legs, and a head, but it doesn't have human characteristics. This is something that is very much demonoid. Its flesh is like charred and almost bloodied, as if it's been burning for like forever, sort of thing. Uh, Big horns, kind of like pointing out of its head and sort of like almost curling up, like almost like a ram, but in reverse. Instead of like curling downward, they curl up and over its head. And it's just sort of like maybe like leaned a little bit forward on one of its like forward like arms, and it's almost standing in sort of a squat, almost like code like position as it like looks to this other creature who very much looks human in a fashion. And this is something where it is somebody who looks like they were once human, and there are characteristics of his flesh that are almost like completely torn away, and like where an arm was seems to have been like torn off of his right shoulder, you can see almost like the flesh is almost like scarred and burned, but still sort of fleshy red, as if it's like a third degree burn trying to survive. And the musculature of that arm is much larger, even though it seems to have been like cursed and like its flesh been torn away. The musculature of that right arm from the shoulder down is all wrong and all different. And this person has like single horn kind of coming out of their head, and it's as if the skull was like broken away so this horn could come from within. Um, let's see. I think Jinx is probably the only person who has seen Wunatad from this group of at least the main characters. I think Neffy and I think Terry Chin were there when you guys went to the Pythonese house. When you had to carry Dalton away unconscious, and that was like one of the last times we had Malchin. Wunatad is like the leader of the chaos cults that you guys are sort of searching with. He's who you expect to have the king of the barbarians. And this person, in many ways, sort of resembles Wunatad. Not that this is Wunatad. Wunatad was more human and had like the bat like fleshy wings, but this person resembles the same idea of a human's flesh being perverted into demonness. Um, in that same way. Like this is a half demon. But these two creatures seem to be like speaking. The half demon is like southwest of you and is looking down the hallway. The demon is sort of looking back. At present, they don't seem to react as you guys first come into this moment. So, with the thought that you may sort of be approaching them unknown, what is your first thought as you kind of like see these creatures to the southwest?
Think Davros is going to kind of like turn around to the towards the others behind him, and he's just going to try and mouth demons. He doesn't want to say anything aloud to potentially alert them if they haven't noticed us yet, but he's not sure how well the others will be able to make that out. Um, but his, they'll probably see his hand will go towards his um, well, I guess it's the great sword, so it's probably like more strapped to his back than on his hip. So his hand will kind of move to the hilt kind of behind his head, and he will start trying to like essentially very cautiously, quietly move forward further into the room. And I guess towards the left, the west, where the creatures are.
Gotcha. So you guys already heard these things ahead of time, so you should basically know what you're approaching. But what's everybody else thinking? Is he kind of like confirms the demons and he's moving forward?
So I think Jinx is very much hesitant to make any like executive decisions at this point. But he's definitely like ready for combat.
I think it's the same with Gale, basically following Darrow's lead here, but yeah, kinda on edge from the last room.
Dude, the level of I described the half demon before I had a picture for him, when I dropped this picture, I can't believe I found this with such ease. I impress myself sometimes. My bad. This is also where I miss having three computers. Gotcha. So you approaching into the room isn't going to immediately cause either of them to like leap into combat. But you do see like the full demonoid, the one like more to the left that's actually kind of facing towards you guys. Like in the middle of this like horrendous kind of like cacophonous vocalization just sort of like stops, looks towards you, and you can kind of see the moment like it's speaking towards you. It's in some sort of fiendish language you don't speak.
Yeah, so Davros doesn't know if cultists are supposed to be able to understand it. So he will um, probably kind of like maybe take like one or two steps closer and just like give a shake of his head, kind of like firmly um, towards the demonic creature that's speaking to him or at him.
Gotcha. I feel like that's a solid that's not deception because you're honestly not able to understand. I feel like you could go deception because you're trying to get something from it, or you could go persuasion because you honestly can't understand. So, what would you like to roll?
I think for this one, I think persuasion probably makes more sense.
Sounds good to me. Let's see what the verse has to offer.
13.
Without like kind of skipping a beat, the voice goes from this like horrendous cacophony of noise to just this like soothing, almost like lullaby. And you just sort of kind of like hear as the voice goes to something like kind, and it's just like pleasant to your ear, as it's just like, we felt the presence of a great one. The sanctuary was blessed, and you have brought. And you hear like a kind of like cacophonous sound come from it again. Forth, as they basically say like this creature's name, and that you guys have summoned it, and they've like sensed it.
So Davros will respond in common. Um, we uh, we made an offering. It seemed to be well received, and he'll try to um, pronounce the creature's name that the demon said, and just completely like butcher it. I presume, like essentially, like yeah, um, he tries to mimic the name of the creature, but probably gets it completely off.
It like takes a moment to kind of like almost like saying like this, repeating like this demonic speech to you, as it then like kind of like stops, and like it almost is like slowing down to almost like in a vomitous sort of way, like try to force this out in common. And it's just like Zang, and it just tries to like voice it over again to you, to like force you, to give you the opportunity to like not be insulting it again by sort of saying the name in the wrong way. But after it kind of gets this like ball of hair out of its throat, as it describes it, it's just kind of like has this like, again, it's like almost like hauntingly soothing how the common sort of comes out of it, where it's just kind of saying like, you would not be walking this plane were you not pleasing. And again it says this like Zag, as it like voices it to you again, and like each time it gets like a little bit closer, where you can start to like recognize the actual like consonants, and like mismatch kind of like consonant vowel pairing of this name, but where you're starting to gain like a sense of like it's like ZOG and like BAXOHX, and you're just like starting to recognize that there is some sort of demonic name that's forming in your head. Um, Jinx, can you roll a intelligence for me?
Oh, so it's just an 11, no modifier.
As it says this name a few times over again, you're like seeing like flashes of that like moment that you like saw your tattoos were different, and you like kind of like look down, and you just see is like the ink's almost like moving in your skin, and you start to like wonder like, is this really happening? and then it like stops moving and it's gone. But like for a moment you like wondered like all of that ink kind of like moved and it like reminded you of what you saw in that spark of the cigarette, and it all seemed to be the same kind of like um lettering, and whatever that script meant, it seems like here is you're starting to recognize that like wording this creature's name kind of increases that power, and something about it is resonating with whatever you saw in that hallucinatory moment. So yeah, as you guys are like kind of having this moment, the creatures kind of like look towards you as you've like walked in, and then you're like holding this position like at the like front of this entryway, and then they like look back to each other, and you hear them kind of like speaking to one another. The human kind of like the half demon, more humanoid of them, kind of like turns to you. Um, I don't know how specifically it is like that he would go about necessarily saying like to identify yourself, but he's kind of like taking a moment where he's like imperatively telling you like, you know, show me your affiliation. So it's just something to the effect of like, identify yourselves. Who do you serve that you've brought Zogdak socks into this world?
Yeah, so Davros at this point will he'll bring up his hand again, similar to kind of like holding it like his hand out, like kind of palm towards him with like the uh, face of the ring held out, and he'll um, not as like roughly as he did with the rat rat lords, but he'll the or with the brotherhood, and he'll kind of like try and show the ring. You take like a step forward.
Favor to the Brotherhood. Those of the tolling bell will be quite disappointed to know you found such favor this day.
And Davros will kind of like, as he hears the name, the tolling bell, he'll kind of just like turn and kind of like just spit on the ground and uh, afraid don't care much what those fools think. Trying to kind of play up the sort of internecine rivalry between the Celts, trying to play his part.
You're not far off. We would have expected that your friends, your group, would be little more than puddles by now.
Yes, well, we are not. Um, and Davros doesn't like he's trying to think of a way to essentially extricate himself from this conversation, because he's afraid the longer this goes on, the more chance that he'll be his deception will be found out, and he'll kind of like he'll as he after he says kind of that last bit, he'll kind of like look, kind of glance back towards the others, and then um, soon we can make out the door here on the to his right.
To your right, there's like an open hallway behind the like fully demon one. To our east, like to our right, there
Oh,
is a
sorry.
door, and then to the
Yeah.
south, there's a door.
Okay, sorry. That's what I meant. To our right. So to his. Yeah. Sorry.
Gotcha. So this is perhaps a minor thought, but because you've already sort of moved a little bit past like where the stone has like crumbled away from like the sewer water above. Like, are you walking backwards like while you look at them? Like, never break eye contact, don't break eye contact, don't break eye contact, or are you just kind of turning around and walking towards that door?
Yeah, I think he does not want to turn his back on these things. So he kind of like very like diplomatically tries to essentially like kind of step backwards, like taking small steps.
Gotcha. So like you're about to go check that door. Are you thinking like you're just gonna like small talk like, oh, so what's in this room? Push it open, or like you like what's with this sewer water? You know, push open the door. Do you think you're just like saying something? Do you just kind of go over and do it?
I think he'll just try and say something like, "Well, we should get to our main business," just like vague like that, and then again, sort of like kind of try to start moving like he knows where he's going and why he's here, like moving kind of with authority over towards the door. Uh,
So main business. You just got told you summoned a demon, and it's quite impressive that the Brotherhood's done it. Can I have a deception check with saying that?
sure. Yeah, I guess it's like almost like, oh, it's just a happy accident we summoned a demonic god.
Main business is a pretty good, I feel like, accidental. Oh, maybe I should have said that.
So that's an 11 because he has a -2 on deception.
Stand tall to respect those who would come and so lightly summon a demon into their world. Are you here then for, and I have to look up the name of this because I can't just say it from memory. Um, None of you should recognize the name of this as I say it, as this should be the first time you guys will hear the Rasprak machine.
Oh, we serve a greater purpose than our own. I mean, obviously we're here to do the demon thing, but we're looking for the one whom you're in his likeness. We need. It's about the king of the barbarian.
Roll of persuasion.
23 total.
The two of them kind of like look to each other for a moment, and you hear them kind of speaking in the fiendish language again for a moment. And then, like, the little one, the like black one who's like all charred and burned, the like fully demonoid one, he like looks to you and all, I, I'm right. You've come to kill Unatan and take the Rack machine for yourself.
And I wouldn't say that we're here to kill him. We're here to deal with him in a sense.
Your secret is safe with me. I will not share what you mean to do. You've shown yourselves powerful enough. I respect your will to rise in favor. God's flesh is flesh until he is finished. You can take the power you desire at your will. You do not want the machine for yourselves.
I'm not saying that at all. And let's say hypothetically we were here to dethrone him of his power. What if we gave you some promise of riches or power of your own? I don't suppose you could reveal his weakness.
Weakness is flesh. To promise me power is little more than emptiness. The living, you're all susceptible to death. Power is easy for you. And he kind of like gestures towards like the half demon, and he just kind of says, Astrid has killed one or two fiends. And you see Astrid kind of like nodding his head like a little bit towards the other one. And as he looks towards you and he's like, to take the power of another is much simpler in our form than theirs. Wuntad is susceptible now. Were you desiring that flesh? If he completes what he desires, like this one here, life becomes. And you see the little black creature kind of like looking up to him. Different is life. One becomes the other. Kill me here. I will rise again. My power is mine. And then he kind of like looks like down and away, and it's just like almost like a fear sort of sense, and you see as its flesh like starts to like sizzle and burn, like just from the little bit of like moisture in the air, as if his flesh is like rising to an extreme heat, and you see as like charred flakes of its flesh are like starting to fall. Other planes are where my death can come. But here, you can neither give me power nor take it away. But there are ways to send the demons back. And perhaps, were I waiting, I could benefit. But even so, it's perhaps beyond our will to scheme. I enjoy the pleasure of watching suffering. Your world is so bright for entertainment.
Unitard is quite powerful, and you're right to know that we seek what he has. Where is he? Can you help us find him? Or at least steer us in the right direction?
You'll hear again as he kind of says, the champion of the Gargax can certainly rise to the occasion. You're searching for the tolling bell, for Wunatad, and for their Mrathmaker machine beyond this cell. You need only follow. And they will. Yeah, they point you towards the door in the south. And I think I said beyond this cell, you need only follow. I should say beyond this cell, you need only follow the hall.
Appreciated. And Davros, who had been kind of like starting towards this door, like almost kind of like does like a like a sort of a quick turn like down to his right and starts sort of striding towards the south instead.
Gotcha. So as you like go and approach that door, you can open it. There is it's just kind of a what is that, 30 by 30 room. There's different like what is it, like a bed in the southeastern, a table in the southwestern, a couple of like scattered what is it, like book bags and things like around. Like there's just kind of like goods sort of built up in this room. It's not like filthy like some of the rat dens, but it's definitely not like a clean place to go. There's a perversion that kind of like makes you know like this is still a horrific thing, even if it's not dirty like the rats are dirty. There's something horrendous about like willingly walking into this place. It's almost like a revulsion in your body, despite you like mentally thinking like I'm going here, I have to go here, this is a duty that we owe.
Yeah, so Davros tries to keep up like a kind of like stoic front, at least until he's kind of through in in through the doorway. And then he's kind of gonna like let his like almost like he's kind of like it was like too much effort, a lot of effort. And he kind of like lets his shoulders slump a bit. Is kind of like the just the whole sort of psychic effect of this kind of like starts to weigh on him a bit more, and he kind of lets himself show it.
All right, yeah. So my bad. Over on the northwestern side, those are actually two chests on that side. The other things, though, are actually bags, basically, like scattered in the northeastern side.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think Davros kind of, and are the bags like just sort of like haphazardly kind of thrown about in the corner, or are they like stacked or?
Indeed, they're just like thrown in the corner.
Yeah, so I think he'll kind of like he'll move over and kind of like picking one at random, just sort of like try to like kind of lift it to see how like heavy it is, or if you can get any sense of like what might be inside.
Um, Probably takes a sizable amount of effort for you to lift it one-handed. It's definitely not like difficult or like impossible. It just takes a good bit of strength to do. One-handed, you can definitely lift it. Two-handed, it's not really terribly difficult to lift. Um, Probably recognize it's roughly about like 80 to 110 pounds.
Okay, and he'll kind of like try to like I guess almost like squeeze it. Like, is there like something soft inside, or is it like harder?
Gotcha. So these are like rucksack size bags, like going off to boot camp for a soldier. When you squeeze it, let me have you roll a d20, please.
Sure. It is a 20.
So when you grasp the bag and you like go to feel what is inside of it, you like squeeze into this like canvas, and you almost instantly feel like your hand is like palm into a nose. Like you can feel the like cartilage of the nose and like the start of that nasal bone. You can immediately like your fingers like go middle finger like bridge of the nose, your pointer and ring finger immediately like go into kind of a gooey eye socket, and you're like immediately upon squeezing this bag recognize that you are basically palming a human head.
Yes, I think instinctively, as kind of Davros comes to realize just what he's like kind of holding and feeling, he'll just kind of give out like a ugh, and just sort of like almost like toss the rucksack back onto the pile.
You can just hear like a little bit of kind of a joyous laugh from outside of the room as the demon's looking at you, and it's just kind of smiling. All of them. And it's just like nodding its head, like telling you, yes, they're all filled with bodies. My bad. It doesn't actually say yes, they're all filled with bodies, but that's what it's like saying to you.
Yeah, I think that the implication is fairly. Um, yeah, I think Davros will be able to get the implication there.
And then it just like, as it kind of like finishes with that, it's just like, keep going down beyond. And like you can tell it's telling you like keep going down beyond, but like there's nowhere in this room for you to go.
Yeah. I guess he'll Davros would kind of like he'll let the others kind of like if they have anything in particular they want to inspect. But
My bad. Can I actually have you do a? I should have had you roll. Would you? No, no, I did have you roll something. You rolled a 20 when you were like palming it, right?
yeah, you just asked for a D20 for with the rucksack. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say that like when you like pick it up, you immediately like feel the face kind of thing. But let me actually add that as you like picked up the bag, you also see like a piece of paper kind of like lying on the other side. And it's basically just like the recognition, like there's something here that you can read. Um, I feel like it's a solid thing to say. I kind of skipped over this part, but it was supposed to be a DC of 16, so you crushed it with that like random see what you're grabbing. I feel like it's worth saying that you've got the paper.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. So in that case, he will try to read it himself first, depending on what language it's in.
Yeah, so you can effectively be as like as nonchalant or as clearly like I'm leaning over to pick up this paper as you'd like. But when you pick it up, you basically see the writing is, but before they slept, they committed one last act of divine betrayal. They fell upon one of their beloved named Gelselrak, shredding him completely so that one future day their servants could feast upon his flesh and his blood and be changed. Galesothrak's ebon hand would bring blessed mutation and lovely transformation, granting those who dared partake the power to free the masters once and for all.
So Davros probably spends a minute or two kind of reading this. Still, if the others like kind of look at him, they'll see him like he Davros is the type he reads by like mouthing the words silently. Um, he's not a strong reader, so it takes him a while, but he'll kind of once he's gotten through the note, he'll look to the others. And does this look like it's been ripped out of something else, or is it like just a single sheet of paper? I guess because it.
It says it's a page ripped out of a book. So, oh, and it says the passage is circled. So it's a page with more writing in it. Let's think of it almost as like a dark Bible for the Ebon Hand sort of thing. And that's just like something that's like brought attention simply in like the tearing of the page. So like whoever removed it because they found that passage.
Yep. Okay. Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah. So he will kind of after he reads it, he'll hand it off to the others. And looking around the room, this table or thing in the southeast corner, is it? Is that sorry? Is that like a table or like a cadaver? Is almost thinking like that there must be some sort of like hidden door in here somewhere. So he's thinking of like looking around places where it might like it could be behind furniture or something like that.
So I think the southeast is meant to be a bed, and then the southwest is a like bed of straw. So it's not a table. That was just my mistake in describing it.
Oh, okay, okay.
Actually, here I've got a better understanding now. Um, the southeast is a cabinet. The um, circle is a bed of straw. The two silver pieces in the northwest are the lock boxes, and then um the like bags are again they're basically like bags that would like almost resemble like large pillows kind of thing, but inside of them are bodies.
Okay. Okay, yeah. Yes, I think Davros would start kind of moving towards the cabinet and try to open it.
Inside of the cabinet, you're going to find like the like classic like James Bond like torture implements, like scalpels and different blades, like bone saws, like needle-like implements almost for like going to somebody's nostril to like remove the brain, things for like poking out eyes, all kinds of horrendous kind of like torturing devices.
Lovely. So he will try to like very carefully, kind of like not wanting to like poke or scratch himself in anything. He'll try to like just to check. He'll like kind of try to reach back to the kind of um the back wall of the cabinet and just sort of like kind of like try and rap on it to see like he's thinking, I don't know, maybe there's a false back or something.
Gotcha. Let me just have a investigation as you're like kind of physically sort of investigating around this room for where you would expect to find.
All right, so that is an 11. Again, he's -2 investigation.
Gotcha. So I'm not going to say that you can't find it because you guys do have the sense that it is in here. It takes you some amount of time to be able to find it before you basically find that it is a false wall to the south. You probably spend another like 10 or so minutes in here. The thought of like these demons kind of speaking just outside of this room would probably be like what's it, like a music worm when you got a song like stuck in your head, only it's like that thought of like, are they starting to question why we're here? Are they going to come in here and start to, all of these horrendous thoughts of what these demons might do are just like creeping around in your head as you guys just start to search, not like frantically, but like more and more intently, because like each passing moment is like another moment that you're standing by these demons, and it's just like a sense of we need to get out of here before you guys basically find like oh, just like almost like a sigh of uh like giving up kind of thing, and it's this like horrendous feeling of like loss, and like the door in this wall almost kind of like responds to this like negative emotion being kind of like cast out there. And you just see is like there's like a trickle of sand as this doorway kind of like forms in the southern wall. And as the sand kind of like falls away, you see is like this wall's like perhaps illusion, but whatever it is, kind of like is clearly like a door there. And then like the last moment where the sand like touches the ground, there's just that like slight kind of sound of sliding stone against stone, and it reveals the passage to the south.
Yeah, so I think as kind of that happens, Davros like maybe a little more loudly than intended, kind of lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, and like he kind of mops his brow, almost thinking like this, like searching the stream is almost like there's like a ticking time bomb because like at some point the demons are going to get curious. So he's like you said, like trying to be like trying to be professional and like not like go running around frantically, but definitely like very much on edge. Um, but then he kind of looks back towards the others when the door finally kind of reveals itself, and well, shall we?
Yeah, I'm ready when you are. Only difference is I know what we're facing on the other side.
Well, do you have any tips for us others then?
Not really, to tell you the truth. What we're gonna face is like nothing we've faced before, but mm, we're here now.
Don't think there's any going back at this point. And he's gonna kind of like as he starts to kind of move towards the door, he's gonna kind of like a thought will almost hit him, and he'll look back towards Gale and Jinx again. And you think that Ash Rock machine is? Could that be what they're using to make those things?
I don't know. I mean, we know they inject them with that serum, but we don't know where it comes from or anything. I don't know what the machine is for, but I would imagine it has something to do with the king. So maybe we'll get some answers. But just whatever that demon says, whatever it tries to tell us or convince us of, can't believe it. They'll do anything.
Davros will nod and step through the doorway into the passage beyond.
All right, so as you all step in, the hall goes for about like 20 or so feet to the south before it seems to kind of turn. There's like a stairway down about 20 or 30 feet before you see kind of like the light probably extends for about another like 20 before you actually need to walk down the stairs and see that that hallway continues on for some 40 or 50 more feet before it turns to the south. What sort of marching order do you guys have in the hall here? You can go basically two abreast, and your party is seven.
I'll probably continue to have Terry up front with Davros.
Yeah, and that would make sense too because Terry has dark vision. So Davros, I think, so Seamus will still have the light kind of. He'll be following fairly close behind. Um, maybe Davros and Terry in front. Maybe Seamus kind of like 5-10 feet behind, like directly behind Davros.
So 5 feet would be directly behind, 10 feet would give you a 5 foot gap. What do you want to do?
I guess a 5 foot gap, so 10 feet behind.
Yeah, and I'll have Jinx in that second rank.
All right, you want to stick with that same idea, having 5 feet behind you?
I don't necessarily need a big gap or anything. Doesn't matter.
Well, it's up to you guys. Like, do you want, like, if you went right behind, you could be like that. Gale and Seamus are 10 feet behind. Neffy can, be wherever she wants to be. It's just if you guys want a gap in your party.
Yeah, I guess we can leave a 5 foot gap.
So wait, do you want 5 feet between Terry and Davros and anybody else? Yeah.
Wait, isn't that what you were saying? Yeah, unless like we want to fill
Okay,
it in.
Gail, do you not want to be at the back? Do you want to do something like that, where you have like Neffy at the back, and then you've got what is that, Bill and Jinx, yeah, Gail and Seamus, and then 5 feet between the two frontmen.
Yeah, I'm fine with Gale and Bill where they are.
All right, so you guys can progress forward as such as you are kind of moving through this hallway. You are kind of moving along again. Moving along again for about 40 or 50 feet after the stairway before you have the hall turn to the south. By the time you turn to the south, you can basically see that there are doors ahead, outside of necessarily Davros can, outside of where Davros can like
I think you might have cut out there, Ma.
So as you guys round the corner and kind of turn southward again, um, it's perhaps outside of where Davros can simply see the door ahead, but it is inside of the dim light where you could make it out enough. But Terry could very clearly recognize that there is a door ahead and that there is a opening in the wall along that western side. So you've got a door to the south and an opening to the west.
All right, so Davros will kind of continue on down south with the idea of kind of like taking a look at the once he reaches the opening into whatever is beyond there.
All right. So as you approach that opening, how are you kind of like peering into it?
Um, well, probably like he probably like realizes belatedly as he gets there that the light from the lantern, at least some of it, probably has gone past. So he'll move up to like the edge and then kind of like just like turn and um oh maybe like put a hand on the door and kind of like with his shoulder and head like almost like kind of peer around the corner sort of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. So if you're approaching to the actual like opening, you're going to see at least inside a little bit more kind of before you're necessarily like looking all the way in. But as you approach closer and closer to that opening, you can kind of see this is another one of those rooms that is like cascade of colors, and it almost starts to like induce these senses of vertigo, and there's a sort of just opening, and when you're looking into it at first, you just kind of see the stone sort of give way effectively to what is like a cliff. It's not until you actually go to peer around that opening that you would see anything else. So, do you have any thoughts before you kind of peer around with the idea that you're kind of spotting a cliff to the south of you? Yep, that's not what I wanted.
So I think he will. Aside, I guess aside from kind of staying away from the cliff edge, much as he can. I'm not sure Davro. Yeah, I'm not really sure if that would change what he's planning on doing. So he'd still kind of like turn and look into uh, around the side of the opening.
What's everybody else thinking as you kind of come to another one of these like kaleidoscope rooms?
So I don't think Davros has been in one of these rooms before. I think that was Dalton still.
Yeah, technically Davros would not have seen it. Yeah, that's right.
What was the kaleidoscope room? I don't remember that.
It's where Dalton actually died. It's where you guys like step in. It's like vertigo inducing, so it like messes with your inner ear and you kind of would feel like almost like wobbly on your feet.
Wait, is that where the wizard like where we killed the wizard and then the guy like shot us and tried to run away?
It was like the room you walk through and killed the wizard, and then the guy ran back into like they were outside of that room. But that's where the temple was. So like I think it sounds right that Davros is like starting to basically see into this room, feel like the queasiness, and he's basically like held back and he's like looking for you all to sort of add to this situation.
Yeah, I can't think of like context wise if we know anything like particular about the rooms or like they served a certain purpose or anything.
Any thoughts from Gab?
Yeah, no, I'm basically stuck on the same, trying to like think what you could say here, but
So I think if nobody kind of like mentions anything, Davros will he'll kind of like look back to ask like if you've seen something like this before, but he will kind of take another step in, more sort of like just instinctually curious. Maybe kind of one hand going to his head, almost like he can somehow kind of like you know prevent this kind of weird nauseous vertigo feeling, but like not really sure. But it's like something's messing with his head, but he's not really sure what. As he kind of takes another couple steps um, towards the kind of kaleidoscopic colors.
Just stay away from the edge just in case it kind of takes hold of you. Seen something like this before, but I mean, I don't really know what it was for or what purpose it served. Just be careful. This is where Dalton met his end.
All right, so if you and as you round the corner into more of a full view of this room, you're going to see that this is a massive chamber. Let's see, 10, 20, 30. Yeah, so I think you guys can pretty much see the entirety of this chamber. It is filled with these lights that seem to be like dazzling your very like presence here, causing this sensation of vertigo that kind of like puts you off balance. And you can't really focus on things while you're facing in this direction. But as you kind of like step into this room where all of these things are around you, there is a little bit more of a clarity that kind of comes across you, Davros, as you start to sense like these aren't just like painted colors all around you, but there are like gems, as if this place is like a massive geode. And this whole place is just a 360-degree up, down, and around, just massive geode. And inside of the center of this, there is this stone island floating about 60 or so feet in front of you. There is a bunch of 20, 30 chains or so, like hanging from the island, and there are humans dangling. Some of them are like writhing in pain, some of them are screaming. And it's only in that instance of stepping into this room that you start to see and feel these people who were like suffering beneath this island, floating above this geode. There's a massive stone plinth upon it, on the top of it, like the flat part of the actual island, and there's spikes all around the edge of the island, just protruding in all directions. And like the moment again where you kind of like step forward up to this edge of this cliff, you just see that there is a woman who's standing right next to this stone plinth, and her flesh is on fire. And she's just like looking directly towards you. And she says, "Come, brother Davros, taste the pains of the flesh." And we're going to pick up with that next week.